2 minutes, 2 minutes. Ooh, nerves. Got my cup of water. Oh, that stage was yours. Yeah, you killed it. Oh, did you guys see the AMV contest, by the way? Uh, you guys see a bunny in one of the videos? They're also announcing the machinima winners pretty soon, I think. I didn't enter this time, but my friends did. Oh, my friend edited, made and edited the video this time because I was too busy focusing on this panel. Busy rehearsing, understandable. I hope everything goes well. Oh, did you guys see a donut? Wait, sorry. Oh, donut flash. Okay. See, technical difficulties, man. If there's ever technical difficulties, it'll default to that picture of that donut for like 1 frame. I made that in Blender. All right, as soon as it hits 6 p.m., we're gonna start up. All right, and we're gonna go fast. Hey, Joe, what's up, Joe? Hey, Joe, I'm glad you could make it. Oh, Eric, what's up? Eric, glad to see you here. Eric's a fellow. Eric and Joe here are fellow Deep Dungeon runners. As soon as it hits 6. Oh, and Kudere too, of course. Let's go, Kud. Let's go. I'm excited to have you guys. Thank you guys for showing up. 1 minute, less than a minute. Oh, Ludo, let's go. Oh, you. I hope you can clear Palace after this. Oh, I'm sure, Ludo. Yeah, of course. Hello, everybody. I love Palace, but I'm too scared to really delve in, so I'm super hyped for this. Oh, man. I hope you can get something out of this. As soon as it hits 6, guys, we're about to transition into the panel. Oh, we're transitioning. Hello, everybody. My name is Dale Koopa, and welcome to my panel. So you want to be a Necromancer. Deep Dungeon tips and tricks brought to you by me. We have a lot to get through, guys. This is low-key like a 2-hour panel. So who am I? I'm Dale Koopa. You can also call me Koopa Tail or KoopaKwon. I go by any of these. A little bit of credibility on me. I am technically the #1 highest Red Mage Palace of the Dead score in North America. Technically, because there used to be a guy named Daravan who was higher than me, but he recently transferred his character to a different server, and that actually gets rid of your scores. So I'm back to technically being #1, but if you count his score and you count some of the ones outside of North America, my score is still the #5 highest Red Mage score. I've also cleared Palace of the Dead as Machinist, and I'm currently progging White Mage, and my personal best is 194. I put in over like 50 attempts into Palace, so I learned a thing or two recently, I swear. Now, let's go over the basics for those who may not be familiar with what Deep Dungeon is. Now, I was going to create like a couple slides just going over the basics and stuff, but luckily for me, oh, the donut showed up again. Luckily for me, Final Fantasy XIV official website just kind of goes over everything. So, I mean, we could just talk about it here. I'm not going to read this word for word, but let's just review this. Let's just quickly skim over this. Hey, this is where you unlock it. Yeah, I know the donut keeps showing up. This is where you unlock it. And then you can enter in as a fixed party, meaning that you go in as a pre-made party of 4, 3, 2, or 1. You can also do a matched party where you pair up with random people, like a duty roulette, and then you go with them. But if you do that, you actually don't save your Pomanders, and you can only go up to floor 100 before you actually cannot continue. Plus, when you go in as a matched party, the queue is pretty bad if you're not queuing up for floor 51 or floor 1. So usually you might want to do fixed party. A lot of people do matched party floor 51 as a quick way to gain XP. That's a lot of people's like only experience with Deep Dungeon. Hopefully this panel will let you guys try out the rest of Deep Dungeon. Now, the way that Deep Dungeon works is it's kind of like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. You keep going lower and lower into the floor. There's 200 floors, 1 through 200 for Palace of the Dead. And you play in a set of 10 floors each. And every set that you finish after 10 floors, you can actually take a break for however long as you want. And then you can continue afterwards. Your progress is recorded. You can have up to 2 save files at a time. So the first time you go in, you have to clear up to floor 50 and then do another quest, and you can unlock floor 51 through 200, the scarier stuff. Now, interestingly about Deep Dungeon is that your outside level doesn't matter. You can enter in as floor 1, you can enter in as level 1, level 80. It'll sync down to what Palace wants you to be. It'll reset back to level 1 or level 60, depending on if you enter on floor 1 or floor 51. But what really matters is the ether pool. Palace Deep Dungeon has ether pool for Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High. This is kind of like your real level in here. And you want to get this up to like, I'd say ether pool armor and armor 70 each if you're going to try and go for the Necromancer title, if you're going to try and solo this challenge. And to increase your ether pool, you need to open silver chests. And when you're in Deep Dungeon, you get access to these special items called Pomanders. These are exclusive to Deep Dungeon, and they do various things. They give you like a damage buff, defense buff, or gets rid of traps, turns you into a manticore, all sorts of stuff. And this is your key. You need to know how to use these well if you want to succeed in the Deep Dungeon. Now, the basic concept for Deep Dungeon is you go into a floor, and you want to move on to the next floor, right? You want to go from floor 1 to floor 2, floor 3. How do you go from floor to floor? Well, you enter into a floor, and there's a bunch of mobs, and you start killing a few, and then once you've killed enough, the exit will open. And it's in a random room somewhere, so you have to find the exit, and if it's open, you just step in, and you move on to the next floor. The exit is also indicated by this blue key icon that you'll see in your mini-map, and if it glows light blue like this, that means the exit is open. There's also the Cairn of Return. This is to revive players. You could also revive players through like healing methods. Like if you have a healer, you could just res a party member and they can come back to life. But if the healer is dead, you can revive them through like a Phoenix Down, or if you don't have a Phoenix Down, you can use this Resurrection Cairn of Return. You have to kill mobs to turn this on as well. In solo, this does not matter. In solo, this does not matter at all. Because when you die and you're the only one in the party, you're dead. So, kind of pointless. Also, Deep Dungeon is filled with traps. Invisible traps on the floor. You are walking around, just having a field day, and then boom! You step on a landmine and you explode. You don't die from it, though. Or you turn into a frog. So very annoying, especially when you're fighting like another mob, and then you suddenly explode and your health is super low, and then the mob just slaps you. You could die like that. Very dangerous stuff. There's also floor effects. A floor can randomly have like buffs and debuffs. It can give you haste. It can give you an HP boost. Or it can get rid of all your items. Let me tell you, that is so annoying. Or gloom. All the enemies are stronger now. That's great. Here's the minimap that I mentioned earlier. The minimap is very useful because it indicates if a room has the key, if a room has the exit, the Cairn of Return, or has some sort of a chest. So you have to reveal it first by stepping into the room. But if you step into a room on a floor, you may not be able to see everything at first. Maybe there's some like enemies in the way. So you can actually look at the minimap and be like, oh, the exit's not here. It's not indicated by the minimap. So the minimap is something that you also want to pay attention to as well. All right, there are 3 types of chests. Actually 4. 3 types of chests mainly though in Deep Dungeon. So the gold chests are the ones that drop Pomanders, those special items that I mentioned. Gold chests drop those, so you want to open these often. Silver chests are the ones that increase your ether pool. So by the way, your ether pool stays, like once you finish like a palace run, your ether pool will stay the same for like the next run. So you only need to get your ether pool up once. So you're going to have to do a couple rounds of palace, just focusing on increasing your ether pool to about 70. 99 is ideal, of course. And you do that by opening these silver chests. Also, they can explode. You open a silver chest, poof, it explodes and you die. And you're like, what just happened? Because silver chests do 70% of your max HP. I've died. Who knows that, right? So that's the way that so many people die in like casual runs. They're in a party, they're all chilling, they just finished up fighting this enemy, and their health is like at half HP, and this one guy's like, ooh, look, a treasure chest, and they open it and explodes and everyone dies. So funny, right? And then there's the bronze chest. Bronze chests drop regular items like potions, max potions, Phoenix Downs, and this is very important, Gelmoran potsherds. Gelmoran potsherds are the ones that these items can be traded in for the disembodied head mount. You need 10 of these, but more importantly, you trade them in for 20 sustaining potions. What is the chance of the silver chest? It's kind of random. I don't think we really know what exactly the chance is. It's just, it happens or it doesn't. But the potsherds, you trade in potsherds for sustaining potions, and these are your best friends. Sustaining potions are regeneration potions that can only be used in Deep Dungeon, and you're gonna need that healing. You're gonna need it a lot. Especially if you're not a healer. I mean, how else are you going to heal, right? And then this is the fourth chest that I mentioned. This is the Accursed Hoard. This is like an invisible treasure chest that can be like somewhere on the floor, maybe. To find it, you have to stand over where it is for like 2-3 seconds, and then it'll pop up, and you get it, and then later you can trade it in for like special rewards or really like expensive items like Jet Black Dye or the Night Pegasus Whistle. But you have to get it from the highest floors though, and they're invisible, which is why you have the Pomander of Intuition to help you locate it. If you use this item, then there'll be like this glowing yellow beam on the floor, and then you stand over it, and then you're like, okay, it's here. Then you can get the chest. But you actually don't need this glowing yellow beam. You could actually coincidentally stand over its location, and you could still get the chest. And there's actually an achievement for that too. If you do that 100 times, you get the Of the Sixth Sense title. That's interesting to know. You don't need to know most of... Okay. And then there's also scoring, by the way. So there's also a high score to this. There's a party rankings for groups that go in as 4, 3, and 2. And there's also the solo rankings. And the solo rankings are actually divided per job. So you'll get a score for how far you get as Machinist, how far you get as Warrior, how far you get as Reaper. Each of them has a score. And on top of that, the highest scores, the top 25 people of a data center, will actually be on their Lodestone official website rankings, which we can click here. Look, these are the rankings. So this is for the Ether data center. I can go to the Crystal data center, which is where I am. I can go to solo rankings, and I can go to Red Mage and show you my sick credibility right here. That totally wasn't number 2 like a week ago before Dereban moved away. So these are the rankings. All right, we got the basics down. Oh, let's go back here now. So there's only 2 deep dungeons so far in the game. Palace of the Dead was the original one, and there's 200 floors here, and your max level is level 60. 200 floors. Oh my god. 200 floors, that's like 12 to 15 hours, Jesus. And if you can get through Palace of the Dead solo by yourself, you get a special title called the Necromancer title. This is one of the rarest titles in the game. I think estimate a little over 1,000 people probably have it is my guess, and this challenge has been out for like what, 6 years, I think? About that much. And if you solo Heaven on High, where your max level is 70, and it only has 100 floors, you get the Lone Hero title. There's also a 3rd deep dungeon that has been confirmed to be coming out sometime next year in patch 6.3. And this video will mainly be talking about Necromancer, mainly because I just haven't done Lone Hero yet. So I'll mainly be talking about Palace here, but what I say here can really apply a lot to Heaven on High and probably the 3rd deep dungeon as well. So now we got the basics out the way. Let's just review one more time. What do you do in deep dungeon? You enter into a floor, you find some enemies, you kill the enemies, you open the exit, find the exit, and you leave. And you're there for floor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The first 9 floors of a set. And when you get to the 10th floor of a set, you get a little boss fight too. It's a simple boss fight. Not simple boss fights, but it's like any other boss fight. Learn the mechanics, and you should be good. Now, by the way, guys, this is one of the rarest, most challenging titles in the game for a reason. It's not going to be on the walk in the park, and I'd like to show you guys a little compilation of my my painstaking adventure that it took for me to get this achievement. This is this fun time. Oh look, I got caught by Ram's voice. I'm dead. I hate this. Look, I step on a landmine and I immediately get hit by sand. What could I have even done there, bro? Look at this. Crit Sasquatch hit and interrupted my Vercure, and it hit me again and crit me again. I died in 2 hits. Oh my goodness. Dude, these clips, man. Oh, these clips. That was my fault. Sleep had an animation delay. I should have Vercured. Look at my health there. Do you see my health at all? It doesn't exist. Look at my health here. Look, I'm at full health. Boom. I'm at no health. Did you see that? Oh my goodness, this mode, man. Oh, this is an example of a silver chest exploding. By the way, it can hit the enemies too, which is what I try to do here. But the enemies survived. and then it killed me first. Oh, this is my first time in the final set, and I died to Gaze. That's so annoying. I backflipped incorrectly. There goes me. Okay, don't rezo 2 knights. This is suicide. I don't know why I did this. I actually should not have gotten away with this. I'm not familiar with high levels of Heaven Palace. Do you have to start over if you die? Yes, you do. Yes, you do. I should have mentioned that, but yeah, you it has to be one hit. It has to be in one shot. If you die, you have to start over. Oh, by the way, that's a treasure room. We'll get more into that later. If there's like a bunch of enemies like that in a single room like that, oh my goodness, so annoying. That was floor 199, by the way. Oh, there goes my run. Gotta start over. That's like 12, 13 hours gone. Oh, you gotta start over from floor 1. For this title, you have to do it from floor 1 for the title. Oh, by the way, I disconnected right there. If you disconnect, that's game over as well. Yeah, disconnect, you start over. Floor 1, baby. Dude, and that disconnect wasn't even my fault. The servers went down. The servers went down and I had to start over. That was my first time in the 181 set. Oh my goodness. Guys, this video just brought back so much pain and memory. Oh my. That was my first time in the 181 set. And then all the North American servers went down because the Endwalker release was about to happen. And then the servers are going crazy. And I disconnected and there goes my run. I had to start over. I'm like, oh my goodness. What a way to go. Okay. Let's calm down. Now, the biggest concern that people have when it comes to Deep Dungeon and the Necromancer title is the RNG. Is this RNG? The answer? Yeah, it is. I mean, there's so much RNG involved. The pomanders that you pick up from gold chests is RNG. The room kill count, sometimes it can give you a really nice kill count, like just 4, and you're like, oh, I'm out already. Sometimes it can get ridiculous. You're like, oh my goodness, I killed like 9 enemies already. I'm running out of time. By the way, you only have 1 hour per each set. And that 1 hour really may not be enough in the highest floors. And the debuffs that you get on the floor, it can be like, oh man, I got no items. Next floor you go, oh man, I got no items. Next floor you go, oh man, I got no items. It's possible. But let's get one thing straight. Is it RNG reliant to clear? I should have said, is it heavily RNG reliant to clear? I'll say no. Deep Dungeon players have gotten good enough to a point where we can confidently go in expecting a clear, like I'd say like 90% of the time, depending on how comfortable we are with the job and how experienced we are. I can tell you, if I go in right now as Red Mage or Machinist and do a run, I legit think I can clear. I could get really bad RNG that might make it really hard for me to clear, but I know a lot of counterplay around it. I know how to optimize. I'm familiar with a lot of situations. Nothing will catch me off guard, and I'll have a concrete plan going in. And I think if I go in right now, I could clear again. I will say it's not RNG reliant. Some of the worst classes probably do need good RNG to clear, though. Astro, Black Mage. All right, guys. Let me reveal to you guys the secret. I cracked the code. I know what the most important thing to overcoming Deep Dungeon is. You guys ready for this? Knowledge and constant learning. Okay, guys, this is not content you're trying to do blind. You're not gonna go in blind to this content. Like, for your own sake, please have some respect for your time. I don't want anyone to go all the way up to 180 and be like, ooh, Behemoth, this is my first time doing 180. I don't know what to expect. I put 13 hours into this. Let's find out. And just, no, please don't do that to yourself. Just study up. Just study up. Don't do this blind, please. You want to study up as much as possible. Why is Astro so bad in solo Deep Dungeon? It's because of their damage. Their damage is so bad that you're going to have insane time issues. And you'll, okay, there's so much to study in Deep Dungeon. I mean, there's like 200 floors, right? And on top of that, there's still more that we can learn. Even the best players right now, there's always something new that we're kind of discovering, some sort of new strategy or maybe some sort of technique or like just a mechanic that we weren't like fully understanding that we're still learning now. So always just try to be learning more if this content is something that you enjoy. Deep Dungeon. And an unyielding amount of persistence, because you can study up. You can know exactly what to do, what to expect, and be prepared. Study like a bunch of video guides, a bunch of written guides, but without, it's different to actually do it, right? Isn't that 2 keys? Yeah, it is. It's actually 3 keys. I said number 1 key. No, I said I said number 1 key, and then I put knowledge, constant learning, and unyielding amount of persistence. Actually 3 keys. Now, let me explain to you guys what I mean by study up. Like, what do I want to study? This is kind of what I would recommend that you would study. How to fight every single enemy. Like you enter a floor set, and there's like a bunch of mobs, and you want to know how to tackle each one of those. Especially starting from the 111 and up set. I think before that, you can kind of wing it. Like, the enemies are easy enough where you don't really have to know what they do to try and get through them. But I think starting from the 111 set, you really do want to know what these enemies do. Also, real quick, I just want to say that there's plenty of very professional, like, fellow Deep Dungeon runners in my chat right now. So if you guys have any questions, I can't really get to them right now. But, you know, chat, there's a lot of, like, knowledgeable people in the chat that's answering for you guys. So, yeah. You can trust a lot of these people's words. Okay, but anyway, so 111 set. This set has so many enemies that if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get caught off guard. Let me tell you. So I have 4 enemies in this picture, right? The slime, if you don't kill them within like 35 seconds, they will just explode and you die. Next up is the cobra. If you're fighting what triggers slime to explode, it's just an enrage. If you just leave them alive for too long, they'll just explode. So you have to kill them quickly. It's a DPS check. The cobra, on the second picture is the cobra. If you step into a frog trap while you're fighting a cobra, the cobra will just eat you and you die. So, what's a good way to farm potchers? It's debatable. Some people have different methods, but it's good to note that floor 101 plus, the bronze chests drop more. So you could do a solo or a duo run up to that point and try and farm potchers like that. Oh, and then in the third picture we have the Morble. So classic Morble style. What do Morbles do? Bad bread, right? They vomit all over you. These guys are tricky. You know what they do? They put you to sleep first, and that's unavoidable. These Morbles put you to sleep, and then they start doing bad breath, and you're like, oh my goodness. So you have like a second to avoid bad breath. You wake up from your sleep, and then you get vomited all over. You have like almost no time to escape, but you do have some time. So what you want to do when you're fighting these Morbles is you want to stand like right in their hitbox, so that when they put you to sleep and then they start doing their frontal bad breath, as soon as you wake up, you can immediately kind of just dodge the bad breath. Like how would you know this, right? You just have to study up. And then the toad. These toads are interesting. You know what the toad does? It will use sticky tongue, drag you in, and then it'll do like a pounce, like AoE on top of them. Now here's the catch. If you are not facing them when they sticky tongue you in, you get stunned. Why? If you're facing them and they bring you in, you're not stunned. Why? So, like, how would you know that, right? So if you go into this set blind, so many of these enemies can just screw you over. Which is why you want to learn how to fight every mob, each and every mob. You want to know how to fight them. Also, you want to know how to fight each boss, right? And another thing that you want to kind of study up is aggro type. So aggro type is how enemies decide to fight you. Because once you're engaged with an enemy, you kind of have to finish the battle, or you can't really leave to the next floor. So there's some enemies, you don't have the time to kill every enemy. There's a lot of enemies that you just want to sneak around. And to sneak around them, you need to know their aggro type. Some enemies aggro by sight. If they see you, they will fight you. Some enemies aggro by sound. If they hear you, so if you run past them, they will fight you. So you can actually toggle walk and then go past them. Yeah, when you walk in Final Fantasy 14 like that, strategically. And then there's proximity enemies. These are the worst. If you're just near them, you have to fight them. So it's like, it's hard to avoid these guys. These are enemies that you want to prioritize, kind of, if they're in your way. Another good thing to know is what enemies you want to use the Pomander of Steel for. Pomander of Steel gives you like a defense buff. And there's some enemies in the really highest floors that you can't really fight without the Pomander of Steel unless you're a tank. So it's kind of like good to study up on that too. And this is a lot to know. You're like, okay, how am I supposed to know all this? Where do I even begin studying all this? Luckily for you, we got the Bible. It's called Meiji's Guide. This is what everyone uses. Meiji was the first person in North America to ever clear Palace of the Dead. And the second person overall to do it. The first person to do it was Usagi Mimi in Japan, I believe. And Meiji has created this amazing guide that everyone uses. Whether you're doing a group run or a solo run, we all use this guide to start off. This is literally the Deep Dungeon Bible. And yeah, you want to have this on the side, a second monitor, or just study up in your spare time. Just read up on it. I mean, this is just so helpful, so that you don't have to figure out, for yourself what all these enemies do, what type of aggro they are. You can just use this guide. This guide is amazing. Also, Meiji's amazing too. So you want to study up on that, and you also want to just familiarize yourself generally with the Deep Dungeon exclusive mechanics that you won't really find anywhere else in the game. We went over all these already. Ether Pool, Potchers, Sustaining Potions, Pomanders, Traps, Room Debuffs, Chests, and Mimics. Let's go a little more in-depth though. Chests and Mimics. I did say earlier, there are 3 types of chests, not including the Accursed Horde chests. Gold chests contain gold chests contain Pomanders, silver chests contain Ether Pool increases, or they explode for some reason. Bronze chests contain the regular items, and the Gilmore and Potchards. Now, the interesting thing is, these chests can actually turn into Mimics, which are really annoying enemies, depending on the floor set. So, if you're on floor 1 through 30, bronze chests can turn into Mimics. If you're on floor 31 through 50, silver chests can turn into Mimics. And from 51 up, only gold chests can turn into Mimics. And Mimics are annoying because they will use a move called Infatuation, I think, and it gives you Pox. It gives you a debuff called Pox. It is a 10-minute debuff that cannot be Asuna'd. It will prevent auto heal. It will make you slightly weaker in damage, and it'll do slight poison damage over time for 10 minutes. It's 10 minutes, right? Or is it 8 minutes? 10 or 8 minutes. It's a long time. It's ridiculous. You're like, oh my goodness. And like, you can silence it. If you're a machinist or a tank, you can silence it, which makes them really good classes to go in with, right? Because you don't have to deal with Pox. If you're playing any other class, if you're playing Red Mage, you're playing White Mage, you're playing any other class, you just gotta eat it. You just gotta eat it. It's so sad. 10 minutes. Yeah, it's 10 minutes. So sad. Okay, let's go a little more in-depth into Pomanders. Because you're going to want to familiarize yourself with these, right? This is like your best friends. You're not going to clear without Pomanders, straight up. No. Safety, very straightforward. It removes all the traps on the floor. Yay! So I can run around willy-nilly. Sight. It actually reveals all the rooms remaining on the mini-map, so you know where to navigate yourself. If there's like multiple directions, you now know, okay, the exit's this way. I don't have to go this way. And you can see the traps on the floor. You can still step on them, and that you could actually use that to your advantage. So sight is a really good tool. Strength, Steel, very self-explanatory. Raise your damage and raise your defense. But Strength also increases your healing potency, which is good to note. Affluence, Flight, Alterations. These 3 Pomanders are Pomanders that affect the next floor that you enter. So Affluence will increase the amount of chest that appears on the next floor. Flight decreases the amount of enemies on the next floor and halves the amount of kills that you need to open the exit. So if you needed like 8 kills originally, now you only need 4 kills. Alteration will change a random room on the next floor to Mimics or Mandragoras. Now, I already explained that Mimics are pretty freaking annoying, right? But if you get Mandragoras, they die in one hit. Actually, they die if they just aggro you. If you aggro them, they die. And that also adds to your kill count, and it'll help you like leave. It'll help you open the exit faster. And interestingly enough, I think Mimics and Mandragoras have a 50% chance of dropping a chest as well. Actually, all the enemies have chance of dropping a chest when you kill them. But regular enemies, I think it's pretty low, like 5, 10, 15%. I don't know the exact number. It's pretty low though. Does Flight affect room layout, by the way? No, just the number of kills. Alright, now we have Purity, Fortune, Witching, Serenity, and Raising. Purity. So, you know how I said Mimics give you that stupid 10-minute debuff Pox? The only way to get rid of it is through using this Purity Pomander. Serenity. If you get some debuffs on a floor and you want to get rid of it, use a Serenity. Even if you get a no items debuff, the no items debuff will prevent you from using your sustaining potions and all your Pomanders except Serenity. You can still use Serenity to get rid of that debuff. Fortune. Fortune will increase the chance that enemies drop chests, including the Mimics and Korrigans. The Mandragoras, also called Korrigans or Pygmiois. I call them Korrigans. So I said it's 50%, right? If you use a Fortune, it becomes 65% so for them too. Raising. Raising, when you die and you had a Raising activated, then you come back to life. So it's not a wipe yet. Because if you don't have raising and you die, it's game over, right? If you wipe, you're gonna start back from floor 1. Jeez. And then we have witching. Witching will, I know fortune is a scam. Fortune, like, I swear fortune, like, sometimes just does not work. You use a fortune and you kill all these enemies and you're like, bro, none of them drop chests. This isn't even working. Did I even use one? Hello? Fortune can be a scam sometimes. Now there's witching. Witching, when you use a witching, it'll transform enemies around you into either frogs, chickens, or imps. And what they transform into is actually important. Frogs will do minimal damage to you. Chickens will do half the damage that they usually do. And imps will do full-on damage that they normally do. And they interrupt, and they have a chance of interrupting you. So if you get a lot of imps when you use a witching, that could actually be kind of dangerous. Intuition. I already mentioned that you use intuition to get the accursed horde to locate these special treasure. Otherwise, they're so useless. And let me tell you, when you're in the higher floors, the highest floors, and you need like a good pomander, you're like, oh man, it's getting rough. Can I get a strength? Can I get a steel? Dude, I can't fight these enemies without steel. Please, what is this? Oh, I hope it's not a mimic. And you open it, it's like, okay, well, it wasn't a mimic, but sure doesn't help me either. Intuition, woo! Oh no! At least here. They will always go for the intuition. Now, by the way, intuitions are kind of a trap because to get an intuition, you kind of have to go into a room and you increase the chance that you step on a trap, which might screw over your run. But hey, man, you got to grab the yellow, right? You got to grab that treasure. There's also Lust, Rage, and Resolution. These are transformation pomanders only found in Palace of the Dead. They're not in Heaven on High. These pictures are kind of reversed. Lust, you will turn you into a succubus in the second picture. And when you're a succubus, you have access to a move called Void Fire. And when you use it on enemy, it'll lower their defense for like 90 seconds. And you can stack this up to 5 times. Rage. Rage is the best thing you can get. Rage will turn you into Manticore, seen in the first picture. And when you're in rage mode, you one-shot every enemy, except the bosses. You one-shot, you literally go up to an enemy, boom, you slap them and they're dead. Is Palace harder than Heaven on High? Subjective. People have different opinions. They're harder in their own ways. Resolution. Resolution turns you into this like angel thing. For some reason, it's so situational. It's very weird. And you can use Heavenly Judge. It's like an AoE when you're in Resolution. It's like a regular AoE, but it has an additional bonus for undead enemies, which is not always present. So it's very situational when you want to use this. You want to use this on the floor 100 boss. You want to use this on the floor 140 boss. I guess there's some enemies on the 141. There's a couple enemies on the 141 set that's also weak to Resolution. But then after that, it's like 151, 161, 171, 181. You really don't have much of a purpose for this. Until 191, where almost all the enemies, there's like most of the enemies are undead. Now Resolution's super useful. But Lust and Resolution can also be used as like a general like AoE attacking moves as well. If you're playing like a low DPS class like a healer, using Lust and Resolution might actually be a better idea. And because it's a group AoE too. But you have to know how to use it well and be safe about it. Because when you're in Lust, Rage, Resolution, when you transform, you lose access to all your other abilities, like being able to use potions or heal yourself. So if you're getting hit during this, it's kind of hard to like recover your health. The best thing you can do is drink up on a sustaining potion right before you transform, so the regen effect applies for the first couple of seconds while you're in the transformation. All right, this is mainly Palace of the Dead focus, but we can go over the Heaven on High exclusive pomanders as well. These 3 replaces the transformations. Frailty, Petrification, and Concealment. Frailty is kind of like Lust. It'll weaken the enemies for a bit, except you don't have to turn into a succubus. You just use it and all the enemies are just weak for a bit. Petrification, instead of turning into a rage and having to slap each enemy, all the enemies just turn into stone for a bit, and all you have to do is get 1 hit off on them and they'll die. Concealment is nothing like Resolution. Resolution is gone. Concealment will turn the entire party invisible for a bit, and you can walk through traps. You can walk right through all the enemies. The only exception is that if you aggro an enemy, like let's say you open the chest and it turned out to be a mimic, or I think there's also There's some enemies that like do attacks once in a while that can also break you out of it too. But concealment is a very strong tool that was added to Heaven on High. Also, Heaven on High also added Magicites. Magicites are new thing. Okay, Magicites summon a primal and then they wipe out the entire floor. Pretty freaking strong. Like, it's like, oh, I summoned Garuda. Garuda, can you just destroy everything in this floor? And then you can find these through silver chests. There's also additional items that you're gonna want to bring. Sustaining potions. Okay, that's not optional. You're bringing in sustaining potions, okay? Unless you're a healer, and even then you want sustaining potions anyway. You also want to bring in some sort of a food buff. Food buff will give you extra HP. And let me tell you, you're gonna want that extra HP. You guys saw my video earlier. You guys saw how low my HP went sometimes. Yeah, no, every deep dungeon runner can tell you, oh yeah, you're gonna want food buff. It has saved my life countless times before. You also want to bring in regular potions like max potions, super potions, which is actually provided to you by Deep Dungeon when you open bronze chests. You can also bring in tinctures as well. Tinctures can well, it has a long cooldown, but it can increase your strength. It can increase your damage for a bit. If you're a healer, super ethers might actually be kind of useful as well. If you get like an amnesia floor, you might run into MP problems. And you also want to bring in echo drops because there is a trap that gives you that silences you. And you can just get rid of it by using echo drops. You can also consider bringing in other like status related ailments as well, like antidote or spine drops, because there are some enemies that give you poison or paralyzes you, but it's not too necessary, I'd say. And when you use these status healing items, it shares the same cooldown as a sustaining potion, so you can't use the sustaining potions now. So echo drops are kind of nice though, but the rest is, I'd say, a little more optional. Now let's go over the traps. I've mentioned it a couple times here. Let's just go over what they are. Impeding. This is the one that I meant with the silence. This one will pacify and silence you for 30 seconds. It's pretty annoying having to wait that out if you don't have echo drops, right? Assuming you can cast. Landmines. You go kaboom. You actually can't die from a landmine. Landmines do 80% of your current HP. So you can actually never die from it. You can even step on one if you have 1 HP, and you will live with 1 HP. If you ever feel like you died to a landmine, it's probably because something else killed you, like something else hit you maybe. Enfeebling, you damage dealt reduced and damage taken is increased. You just get weaker. Don't step on that. Frog and Otter, 20 seconds. I think Otter might be longer. I'm not sure. You turn into a frog or an otter. Frog for palace and otter for heaven on high. Turning into an otter is worse. I think your stats are like even worse than when you turn into a frog, and it's longer. Luring trap is like one of the scary. Yeah, otter's 30 seconds. Luring trap is one of the scariest ones you can get. Luring traps, if you step on a luring trap, it summons 3 mobs from that floor set randomly, and they're all aggro to you. Let me tell you, it is not easy fighting 3 mobs on those higher floors by yourself. Sometimes impossible. Without help. You're going to have to use pomanders in that situation. I'll get more into that in a bit. And interestingly enough, traps can actually be used to your advantage. Which is why sight is actually kind of really good. But generally, if you don't have sight, if you can't see, if you didn't use a safety or a sight, generally you're going to want to avoid traps as much as possible. And the way to do that is just kind of hug the wall. If you hug the walls of a room while kind of getting through it, you'll avoid most traps. Because most traps are kind of in the middle of the room. But that's not always the case. There are wall traps as well. Even if you hug the wall as tight as you can, there are situations where there can be a trap there. And this is just something that you're going to have to kind of learn. Like certain types of room, like, oh, the Stonehenge room in the 151 set is infamous for having this trap on the right. You're just going to have to kind of get used to this or just learn it elsewhere. Also, traps cannot exist in the hallway between rooms, and traps cannot exist in the starting room. The room that you start off on a floor, it cannot have a trap. And then the hallways cannot have a trap. And so, like I said, when you fight an enemy, it's really bad to step on a trap. You're fighting an enemy and then you step on a landmine, you step on a frog, you summon like 3 extra enemies on top of you, you silence yourself. You really don't want to step on a trap while you're fighting an enemy. So a good like fundamental of going through Deep Dungeon is kind of trying to fight enemies as much as you can in rooms that you know are safe. Oh, there can also be only 1 trap per room. So if you already stepped on a trap in a room, that room is also safe of traps. So a room that you already stepped on a trap, hallways, and the starting room is generally where you're going to want to fight most of your enemies to be safe. All right, now let's go over how you can actually utilize some of these traps if you can see them by using sight. Landmine and silver chest. These things explode and they do massive damage to you, but they also do massive damage to the enemies. Landmines do 80%. Again, landmines do 80% of your max, or of your current HP. Landmines do 80% of your current HP. Silver chest will do 70% of your max HP. So they work a little differently. And it's very scary to use these because you're dropping both your health and the enemy's health at the same time. And it's like, oh man. And if they hit you like right then, you could die. So you have to be very strategic about this. A good way to utilize this is to like maybe use a stun. So you stun the enemy, you know they can't hit you. You quickly open up the landmine or the silver chest. Both of you guys explode and they're still stunned. You heal up real quick. You drink a potion or something. So that's one way you can do it. You could also use witching, because witching could like severely lower their damage output, so you know it's a little safer. So it's very scary to do at first, but this is a very integral part of Deep Dungeon. This is something that you will want to learn if you're doing it solo for the challenge, because doing so will save you so much time. I mean, some of those enemies on the highest floors, they can take like a minute each to kill, and you get rid of like 80% or like 70% of their HP. You're saving a lot of times, and maybe you could even landmine multiple enemies too. That's something that classes can do in the 171 set, like healers and red mage. They can pull like 6-7 enemies, witching them down, find a landmine, and just, if they know what they're doing, just get all of them like that. It's very dangerous, very scary, but I mean, it's more of an advanced thing, but it's very useful to do. Very good time save. Luring traps. Now, like I said, luring traps are probably the worst one that you can run into, because if you run into like 3 enemies and they all aggro you on the highest floors, like you cannot deal with that straight up, not without some sort of help. So the way to deal, if you do step on a luring trap, just straight up, you want to avoid the luring trap. You really don't want to step on this at all. But in the case that you do, maybe you stepped on like some sort of a corner trap or a wall trap, and there's like 3 enemies on you. Usually you want to start off with a witching, turn them into frogs, imps, and chicken. Just give yourself time to think. Once you do that, you can kind of finish off 1 enemy, maybe. Probably not 2. You'd probably have to use like a second witching maybe to get rid of the second one. And then the third one you can fight on your own, but you'd have to use 2 witchings like that. Or maybe you use the witching and you're like, this isn't worth it. I'm just gonna rage. You go into the manticore form and just slap them away, right? But generally you want to save on rage too, so it's kind of a risk. It's like, oh, do I want to use the rage now? Or maybe you're ballsy and you don't even do the witching. You step on the luring and you're like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna rage this, and you go right into rage. But that can be dangerous because there's 3 enemies hitting you all at once. You could also de-aggro enemies. So this is specific exclusively to casters and healers because they have sleep and repose. But if you put an enemy to sleep and you run across like about 3 rooms, they will de-aggro you, which is very useful in general. So that'd be one way to get rid of luring trap enemies as well. So generally, you never want to step on this, right? But it can actually have its use as well in a strategy called a double dip rage. Now, we already know that rage is pretty freaking strong, right? You literally one shot and slap everything away. The only problem with rage is that it's pretty slow. It walks pretty slowly, and trying to get from one enemy to another, or going from room to room, you're wasting a lot of time just walking slowly to the next enemy. You're not getting the most out of your rage. You want to be constantly slapping, constantly killing enemies, right? So the concept of the double dip rage is that you find the exit, you get near the exit, and if there's like a bunch of enemies there, you go into rage, you slap, and hopefully the exit opens. You take the exit, go into the next floor, and then slap as many enemies as you can on the next floor before your rage runs out. And if a luring trap happens to be near the exit, that's even better because that's 3 enemies right there. Now, I'll just show you guys a video example of what I'm talking about. This is from my red mage run. So I use a site here. Man, we're 40 minutes into this panel. I gotta hurry up. It's too much I want to talk about. We're on slide like 26, barely. Jeez. All right, so I use a sustaining potion. I give myself a little regen before I go into rage. Boom, that's 1 enemy. Boom, that's 2 enemies. 3, 4. That's the luring trap. 3 quick kills. 5, 6, 7. Still not open, but this guy's walking towards me. I got kind of lucky here. 8. The exit's open now. When you're going from floor to floor, you can expect to lose like 10, 15 seconds of rage. You get a 1 minute of rage time. So I'm still going in. Quickly orient myself. Oh, look, enemies. Let's go, go, go. 1, 2, 3. Oh, look, it's Livia. Look, it's Livia. Bye, Livia. 4. And then 5. And it didn't open the exit, but it did open on the 6th kill. So that's a very good use of rage, right? And I was able to do that thanks to the luring trap. 8, 5. That was 13 kills I just got like that across 2 floors. There's also the impeding trap. This is the one that silences you. It does silence the enemies as well, but it's not too useful because it'll still like auto you if they have physical attacks. But if you happen to like silence a sprite, they can't do anything at all. They just look at you the entire time until their silence runs out, and then you could just drink an echo drop and it just kill the sprites. It's a little more situational though. I love the way the later stages look too. This is very beautiful and pretty. Generally, frog, otter, and enfeebling traps, these ones can't really help you. But interesting to note that if you happen to turn into a frog or an otter, and then you find another frog or otter trap, and you step on it, you actually transform back. But it's like, if you could see the trap, why would you have turned into a frog or otter in the first place? Actually, in heaven, there are some enemies that can turn you into an otter if you're not careful. So maybe it could be useful there. It's very super situational though. Okay, floor debuffs. Like I said, when you enter a floor, there is a chance that there could be buffs and debuffs. I just took this from the wiki. But let's just go over how some of these floor buffs can affect you. Debuffs, mainly the debuffs. I mean, if they give you extra HP, that's pretty self-explanatory. Ooh, I got extra HP. But the debuffs they can be really annoying. No auto heal. That means, you know, in between mobs, your health isn't going to go back up. So you're going to have to manually drink sustaining potions, right? This is dangerous when you're in transformations like Rage or Resolution because they have no way to heal themselves while they're in that mode. So the auto heal can be scary right there. Blind, you miss attacks. This will waste time. But interestingly enough, transformations cannot miss. If you go into Rage or Lust or Resolution, you actually can't miss. Damage penalty. Well, you do less damage, so you're wasting time. Gloom. It makes the enemies, they hit harder and their defense is a little higher. So it's more dangerous and you waste time. HP penalty. Well, your HP is lower, so it's more dangerous. Inability, amnesia. So annoying. Depending on the class, depending on the job, you lose like so many of your moves that this could be an insane time waste too. I hate amnesia. Item penalty. This is like the worst one. You lose access to your items, all your pomanders and your sustaining potions. You have to Serenity this away. But you only have so many Serenities, right? But actually, I'll say this. You don't always have to Serenity away no items. Try to fight through no item situations as much as possible without having to resort to Serenity. A big mistake that people make is just having to think that they have to Serenity a no item slow right away. That's not always the case. Your Serenity is limited, so really save it until you really know that you cannot do it without items. Knockback penalty. Knockback penalty will prevent Rage from working. The way that Rage works is you slap an enemy and they get knocked across the floor. With no knockback, Rage does not one-hit KO anymore. But interestingly enough, this also affects the enemies as well. There are enemies that like pull you in. They can no longer pull you in. So this can also be to your advantage. Sprint penalty. You can't run anymore. What a waste of time. Now, actually, one more thing. So this thing about the sprint penalty is, it sounds like a minor inconvenience. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. But interestingly enough, it can actually affect certain classes, certain jobs' ability to mitigate damage. Because it can affect their kiting. And I'm going to give an example of this. A machinist is very powerful, and I'll get into why. But they can just run and gun, run away. And the enemies have to chase after them. If they sprint, it's even harder for the enemies to chase after them. But if they can't sprint, it's like a small, it's a little less mitigation right there. Now let's get into the roles. The interesting thing about solo Deep Dungeon is, Deep Dungeon Palace of the Dead was made for a light party. This was meant to be beaten by a group of 4 people. A tank, a healer, and 2 DPS. So you're going in solo. Okay, how are you going to make up for what you're missing? Okay, if you're if you're a DPS or a tank, how are you gonna heal? Sustaining potions. You better stock up on the sustaining potions. You're gonna be drinking like every second you're in there on the highest floor. You're gonna be chugging one right away. Some jobs have like extra abilities like second wind, bloodbath. So just don't forget about those either. Bloodbath goes really well with rage. Now, if you're not a tank, how do you mitigate damage? Some of these enemies hit so freaking hard. This is actually really important. This is a very integral part of Deep Dungeon. Listen carefully here. Pomander's Seal, increase your defense. Self-explanatory. Tactician, shield combo if you have them. Kiting. Kiting is a very interesting concept that you don't see too often outside of Deep Dungeon, and it might take some getting used to. Now, in regular Final Fantasy XIV play, usually a tank will have the mob just stand in place, and everyone else is like getting their positionals off or whatever, and just, and the tank's making sure it's not cleaving the rest of the party. Okay, look, you don't have a party with you. Okay, if you're going in as a machinist and you're fighting an enemy and you're just standing in place while you're shooting, the enemy's just gonna start beating you up. Okay, look, you're not giving it a challenge. It's just gonna stand in place, beat you up. You're a machinist. You don't want to take that, bro. You got a gun. Give yourself some range. Just start shooting at it and start running away. Just constantly run away and shoot at it, and the enemy has to constantly chase after you, and it'll severely lower the amount of hits they get on you. That is a way to mitigate. Just kite. Just keep running away. Staggering is a very similar concept. A little more precise though. It's a bit more specific way of like abusing their movement. I can't really explain it myself. I got a video coming up. And there's also spinning. Spinning is just what it sounds like. You go up to an enemy and you just spin. You just keep spinning around it. The enemies cannot attack you unless they face you. So if you keep constantly behind it, they can't hit you. They can't reach you. Now think about spinning though. Spinning is a very controversial technique in the Deep Dungeon community because it is pretty freaking good, right? Like, yeah, if you spin perfectly, they cannot hit you. So it's controversial. Yeah, so yeah, not everyone does it. In fact, a lot of the best like Deep Dungeon runners, they don't spin. And that's usually for two reasons. One, they want to show everyone else, all the newcomers, everyone watching, that you don't need spinning. And you don't. Every class has been cleared without spinning. Don't think that you need spinning. And they feel like, if they do show spinning on their stream, then their viewers will be like, oh, I need spinning to do this. And I can't spin because spinning is not easy. Spinning is not, it's very precise. Or two, because spinning has such a bad reputation, it's like, oh, if I spin, other runners will not credit the run as much. So it can be like a pride thing too. Let me show you guys video examples just to make this easier, just to help you guys with this concept. This video is by Ether Truck.
That you take from auto attacks but every time he stops for 2 seconds. At 15 seconds.
Look, you see he's just running, right? And then the mimic here has to constantly chase after it. This is donut. This is literally kiting. And if he attacks on top of this, that's kiting. And then in this video, he goes a little more into staggering. I don't really know how to explain it. Look, he's like purposely stopping, and he moves when the enemy moves. So the enemy has to like readjust to where he just moved, and he gets even. Oh shoot, I skipped. And then the enemy has to like readjust even more, and they get even less hits on you. I can't explain it. Just go watch this video, and then let me show you spinning, also by the same person.
Enemies usually work.
This is it.
They need to face you in order to use their attacks.
This is it.
If they're not facing you, then they can't hit you.
And this works on every enemy in Palace of the Dead except for the Shop T and the Archdemons in 151. For whatever reason, those two guys specifically, it will not work. But all the other enemies, including the bosses, you can just spin them. Heaven on High has a lot more enemies that can't be spun. It's so random what can and cannot be spun. Enemies in Bajra cannot be spun, but like most of the enemies outside can be spun. I don't know. I don't know how that works. But in Palace of the Dead, like most of these things can be spun. If you have no shame about spinning and you have the ability to spin, just go right ahead. This will be no problem then. And how do you DPS? If you're a tank or healer, you're kind of playing a different challenge. It's not so much about actually no, healers still have a hard time, but with tanks and healers, the challenge is more the battle against time, because your DPS sucks, right? You're not a DPS. Your DPS sucks, and you only have an hour to get through everything, including the bosses. So, what can you do? Well, you use the Pomander's Strength. That's okay. Yeah, makes sense. But this is interesting. AoE pulling. Healers especially. It's actually more potency to pull multiple enemies and use your AoE than it is to single target them one at a time. Like, you're a scholar, right? I mean, you could use Broil. Is that their single target one? No. I mean, that works too, but what's even better, pull 2 or 3 enemies and start using that Art of War, right? That's the AoE that the scholars have. Yeah, that is actually faster. It's faster to AoE down these enemies than it is to single target them. That's how you save time. But that's scary because there's 3 enemies on you now. They're starting to beat you up, and you want to be careful about spending too much of your GCDs to heal, because then you're not doing damage. So you got to like use your OGCDs, and you got to use your sustaining potions. It's tricky. Healers are very tricky to take into, but it's very possible too. We also went over landmine plays, silver plays, double dip rages. Yeah, any sort of time saving strat, you kind of want them. You kind of want to know how to use them. Now let's go a little more specifically on what job to play. Red Mage. Starting off with Red Mage. This is the class that I cleared with, and this is the OG class that was ever to have cleared Palace by Usagi, by Meiji, by Alithia, and there was even a time when people thought Red Mage was the only class that can clear. Not true. Every class is cleared by this point several times. Red Mage is still a very solid choice. I wouldn't say the best, but it's still very strong, and it's very versatile too because you have Vercure. So you can deal your damage, but if you're in like a sticky situation, you can Vercure it up. And in Endwalker, it got even stronger in Endwalker. I'd say a lot of the jobs actually got kind of buffed in Endwalker. Red Mage got sleep. Stole it from Black Mage. Black Mage having sleep was like one of its like most unique traits, and the Red Mage just took that too. And like putting enemies to sleep in a pinch, it's pretty strong. Machinist is arguably the best class. It has the most clears. This is the class that most people tend to take in for their first Necromancer clear. And it really is because of what I explained earlier. Your kiting skills, you literally just run and gun. Enemies can't catch you. And that is a very powerful tool. It's super strong. And the DPS isn't that bad either. And it can also silence enemies, so you don't have to worry about pox. Machinist, yeah, it's a popular choice. But, hey, maybe you might not like Machinist. You know, it's not for everyone. If you don't click with Machinist, you don't have to do Machinist. Maybe you click more with Summoner. Summoner and Endwalker has started to become popular because they reworked it like pretty heavily in this expansion, right? And it works similarly to Machinist. Instead of shooting the enemies, you're using your like Garuda and not Ifrit. Ifrit sucks. Garuda and Titan to like run away and like attack the enemy at the same time. So you're still kiting. And I think Summoner might be stronger than Machinist too. But defense wise, I think it's a little squishier than Machinist. And instead of having silence, it has sleep. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. Also, tanks. All the tanks are very solid choices, I'd say, in Endwalker now. I think in Shadowbringers, tanks are pretty difficult because of the 180 fight, which I'll get into later. But a lot of them got buffed. And especially Warrior with the raw intuition changes kind of being like a heal, a really strong heal that they have on top of all the other heals that they have. All the tanks are a pretty solid choice, especially Warrior. Tanks can also just take on any enemy without steel. There are a couple times when you're playing other classes where you run out of steel and you just can't find another steel. You're like, game, please give me a steel. I can't fight these enemies without it. You don't have to worry about that as tank. And it's just more of a battle against time because your DPS isn't the best, right? And you also have silence, so no pox. Melee's strong, so you're not going to have a DPS issue. But it's also a little scary because unlike Machinist, Summoner, and Red Mage, you can't really kite. I mean, you can use whatever ranged move that a melee has, but it's not that strong, so you're kind of wasting time if you can do that. So generally, you don't kite too often as melee. You kind of have to just go up to an enemy's face and start fighting it face on, right? So you're going to chug sustaining potions a little more, and you can have a couple more like closer calls. Because each battle might be like a battle to the death on the highest floors. Unless you're spinning. If you're spinning, this is the best class you're going to take. Because all you got to do is just run around the enemy and just beat it up. And it can't even attack you. That's if you're a shameless spinner like me. I don't care about spinning. By the way, guys, the thing about spinning is like, there are a couple situations where the RNG for certain classes can be so bad that like spinning may just be your only choice. But like 99% of the time, that is not the case. But there are a couple situations where it kind of boils down to like, oh, I think spinning might be the only option. And for me, it's like, look, if I'm going to spin, then I'm going to spin all the time. I don't care. I'm putting 12, 15 hours into a run. I'm a shameless spinner. Everyone else has proved that you don't need spinning. So I don't need to prove that anyway. If you tune into my stream, you're going to see me just go around the enemies. It's just that I'm not that good at it yet. But I'll get there. I'll get there. Oh yeah, I didn't talk about Ninja actually. I didn't make a slide for Ninja, but Ninja, as the chat is saying right now, they got hide, bro. You can just go through all the sight and sound mobs, that is a very useful tool to have in your kit for Deep Dungeon. A lot of classes have like little unique things to them that can help them out. Like if you go into Pomander of Lust, Red Mage's dual cast ability actually applies to Verifier. Or healers, like you can use Presence of Mind as White Mage or Lightspeed as Astrologian, and it'll like speed up your Lust Void Fires too. So it's kind of interesting to know. Each job kind of has like a couple unique just like traits like that. Healers. Healers. I don't know if you want to do healers first. I'll say this though, you can save on sustaining potions since you can just heal yourself, right? And it's actually been proven by Aurora Moon, a very good player in Deep Dungeon, that you can actually do both Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High as healer and clear it without using any sustaining potions, except Astrologian Palace of the Dead. He hasn't done that yet. But besides that, healers can actually just clear Palace, can clear Deep Dungeon without even using sustaining potions. So if a sustaining potion in this issue, I guess you can take healer. But generally, healers are probably the hardest role you can take, and mainly because of their low freaking DPS. Right, so you really have to know what you're doing. Yeah, you also don't need steel for any of the bosses until floor 190 as well. And hey, if you get good with healers, you're gonna get good with all the other classes. Just saying. Oh, and all of what I said, Black Mage and Astrologian though, yeah, have fun with that. Astrologian's damage is just like way worse than everyone else's, including like the other healers. It's ridiculous. I think, guys, how long does the 150 fight take? As Astrologian, if you're not using Pomanders, what was it, like 24 minutes? Oh my gosh. And they're going to eat up your portraits so much. I don't suggest taking these classes in unless you really know what you're doing. Okay. Now, I want to ask this question. When does it really get dangerous? Okay, so when you go into Palace, I mean, floor 1's not going to be a challenge. Floor 2's not going to be a challenge. Floor 11's not going to be that much of a challenge. Floor 21, 31, 41, 42. It's not too bad. So let me kind of go over, in my personal, but this is just my opinion, right? Where things start to kind of shift. Floor 1 through 90. Easy. You can, if you know what you're doing, you can pull all the mobs on the floor and just kill them all at once, to be honest. Floor 91 through 140. Yeah, there's a couple enemies on the lower floors that like can catch you off guard, like the Hornets using Final Sting or the Slime using, their Enrage. But generally, like, it's not too much of a problem. 91 through 140. Okay, this is where I would say you got to be careful. I don't think you're going to be pulling the entire floor and making it out alive. But generally, if you just pull one enemy at a time, you should still be fine, to be honest. And interesting to note, in Endwalker, these floors actually got kind of harder for some reason. The enemies just take slightly extra more to kill, and they deal slightly more damage for some reason. This is very notable in the floor 100 and floor 140 fight. For some reason. These floors just got buffed for some reason. 141 through 170. Okay, this is when things are getting dangerous. Like, you could really, your run could really end here if you're not careful. So you really want to study up for these floors. And you can't just, you have to start being strategic. Because time can be an issue. And Here's what I suggest. The way you play, starting from 141 plus, I think it should change. From this floor out, you can't just pull any enemy at a time. Okay? Because you might start overkilling. Like, you killed like 5 enemies, and the key's open, but you haven't found the exit yet. So you're on your way to the exit, and on the way to the exit, there's like 3 proximity enemies. So you take the extra time to kill these proximity enemies, and you just killed 3 extra enemies, so you're wasting time. And then you keep on doing this, and you might find yourself running low on time. So starting from this set is when you kind of have to be careful about that. You're like, okay, well, I don't know where the exit is yet. This guy's in the way. He's a proximity enemy. Let's get rid of the proximity enemy. Keep going. This guy's side, I can go by him. But this enemy... Oh, I see the exit there. The path is clear, but I need more kills now. And now I'm going to choose. I can fight this guy. This guy's easier, so I can fight him, and it's a little less risky for me. But I can also fight this guy because he's closer to me. This is when it starts to get interesting, I'd say. And you also want to save up on your Pomanders as much as possible. I think before this, you can kind of use your items however you want. And you can kind of get them back for like the important floors. But by this point, it's like, okay, you want to start saving up on your Pomanders. And don't be afraid to start using your sustaining potions. I think before this, a lot of us kind of want to just save up on our sustaining potions because it is limited, right? But here, it's like, okay, don't be afraid to start chugging them if you need them. I think this is also a very good time for me to mention what a treasure room is. A treasure room. Look at this. You might find a room with like a kajillion enemies, and you're like, what the heck is this? Indicated, you can tell when a room is a treasure room because there's 4 chests in that room. And you're just like, what the heck am I looking at? Yeah, this treasure rooms can appear as early as like floor 7. It can appear on the first set. But on the earlier floor, it's not that bad because enemies are so weak. It's like not that big of a deal. But on these higher floors where each enemy takes like a minute to kill, it's like, ooh, wait, what do I do here? And I'll tell you how to deal with a treasure room right now. First of all, do you even have to deal with it? Do you actually need to get through the treasure room? Is the exit past the treasure room or in the treasure room? If not, then you can just ignore it. Okay, but what if you do have to get through it? Okay, well, what if I do have to get through it? For newcomers, your first instinct might just be to rage it. You know, go into Manticore form and just start slapping things away. But generally, you want to save up on your rage as much as possible, right? So consider not using it first. Consider sneaking by it first. And you're looking at this like, how the heck am I going to sneak by this? Well, this is what you want to do. Well, this is at least what I do. First, I look out for the proximity enemies because I can't really sneak by proximity enemies. If I get close to them, they'll fight me. So I use my range attack, pull proximities out, and kind of kill them one by one. And then once I get the proximities out, sound enemies aren't that big of a deal because I can just walk by them and they won't notice me. Now I just got to worry about the sights. So it's like, okay, this guy's looking this way, this guy's looking that way. This guy just turned around and he's looking a different direction. Oh, okay, I got a path and I can sneak by. And it's very intimidating to do, but it's a very useful like skill to have as well. Or you could die too. You could use a raising and then just run across to the other side and then die and then come back to life and now you're on the other side. That's a strategy too. Okay, guys, floor 171 through 200. This is where you perish. This is where you suffer. This is where time will be an issue and you can legitimately get screwed over by RNG. Even for the veterans, even for the people who have cleared, these floors are so scary and ridiculously hard. And even opening and 181 plus, like the gold treasure chest drop rate is lower too. And the chance that they turn into a mimic is even higher. Oh, these floors are ridiculous. So you might get stuck here for a while. Now, besides the floor, there are 2 bosses in particular that I want to mention. 180 and 190. Everything before that, it's not too big of a deal. Just read up on its mechanics, and you should be fine. 180 though, Behemoth. Wow, this is a very interesting fight, and it might be a big hurdle for you. It is for a lot of people usually. And most of the fight is pretty fine. He throws out tornadoes, you dodge some AoEs. The interesting thing about this fight is that when Behemoth reaches 15%, it'll start using Ecliptic Meteor. I think. I don't know if it's Ecliptic. It uses Meteor. And the thing about this Meteor is once it charges up and it drops down, it does 80% of your max HP. And after it does that, you know what it does? It just does it again. And then again, and then again, until one of you 2 dies. So, yeah. So, okay, so here's what happens. Meteor drops. I lose 80% of my HP. And he's using Meteor, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, my HP's gone. So I start healing. Check my sustaining potion. Max potion. Second win, right? Okay, my health's back up. And then boom, the second meteor comes out. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I can't use the potion. I can't use the second win. Uh-oh. I can't heal myself up anymore. Third meteor. Oh, I gotta kill before third meteor. Boom, and I'm dead. It's a DPS check. It is the ultimate solo DPS check in the game. And it works differently for every job. and you're gonna have to use Pomander of Lust, the one that decreases the enemy's defense, and Pomander of Strength, the one that increases your strength. That's like a must for most jobs, unless you're a healer or red mage. If you're a healer or red mage, this fight is a joke. Every time a meteor comes down and does 80%, you're like, oh, okay, I'll just heal myself. And another meteor comes out, okay, I'll heal myself. Another meteor comes out, I'll just heal myself. So besides healers and red mage, this is a very challenging fight for every job. And like I said, Machinist is a very popular class. I'm going to show you a video by Angelus Demonus on how he handles Behemoth. So just to show you, how this is dealt with. I can give you a video example. Angelus Demonus is a very popular, well-known member of this community.
18 minutes should be.
His video guides are how a lot of people study up and begin in Deep Dungeon.
And now I'm seeing 22.6. It's going to be kind
Does
of
Paladin's Clemency also work, or do you run out of mana too fast? I'm not sure. I do know that. Yeah, I haven't done Paladin. I can't comment on any Paladin players in here. Yeah, no, it is the nerves, because you took how many hours? Like 12, 13 hours to get up here. You're nervous as heck. Your heart rate will go up to like 160. It's crazy. And I say that because Angelus Demonus sometimes has a heart rate, and you can actually see it. It goes up to like 160, and you're like, is that healthy for him?
17.
So what you're seeing is he first applied the Lust as a succubus. Right now, he's using his auto attacks to get Behemoth's HP to as close to 15% as possible. He's using a macro to see the decimals as well. He's trying to get it to 15.2, 15.3. It shows up in his text, which is blocked by his webcam. He said 15.4. 15.2. So you got it to as close to 15 as possible. You don't want to start this too early, because what you want to do is you want to wait to get it kind of stuck in another move's animation. Right here. It's stuck in its tornado animation. So he starts attacking here. He's using all his DPS, using his rotation. Reassemble drill. Come on, wildfire. First meteor's coming down. First meteor. Boom! That's 80%. That looks like more than 80. Is that like 90%? Did I get the number wrong? Whatever, right? It did a whole bunch of damage. He healed up. He used a standing potion, super potion, second win. Okay, second meteor's coming down. Boom! Okay, all right, he has to kill it now because he has no more heals. Yeah, he didn't even use the turret here, which is crazy. So Machinist can get it. Machinist is not too bad as Machinist. It actually used to be harder in Shadowbringers. Shadowbringers, the 180 fight actually used to be harder. Machinist and all the other classes, they would even have to drop their food buff, because like I said, this is 80% of your max HP, right? And food buff will increase your max HP. So by having the food buff, it actually does like more damage to you. So you would have to get rid of your food buff in the middle of the fight so that the meteor does less damage. Okay. But now in Endwalker, that's not the case. I don't think any class has to really drop food anymore like that. And Endwalker has made this fight a little comfier for all the jobs, to be honest. I'm going to show you guys an example of 180 during Shadowbringers. It was harder. This is Bard 180, and this was done by Alithia, who is an absolute Deep Dungeon legend, GOAT. She's the greatest of all time Deep Dungeon player, like I swear. Back in Shadowbringers, 180 was the reason so many jobs cannot clear. Tank was a very strong job for Deep Dungeon, even in Shadowbringers, but it was only held back because 180 was so ridiculous. Who is this? This is Alithia. Alithia is a Deep Dungeon. She's insane. I'm gonna say a couple things about her later, but I'm gonna show you guys this. This is 180 as Bard, pre-Endwalker. This is Shadowbringers, and like this is so precise that I think she had to even time her sustaining potion down to the server tick. And I think, I may be wrong on this, it's kind of hard to verify. I think she and Norbin from Japan were the only two people to have actually done this. Bard is 180 back in Shadowbringers. There's other people who have beaten Bard 180 back in Shadowbringers, but I think they did it just by spinning the boss. But beating this fight without spinning as Bard 180, I think she and Norbin might have been the only ones. Now let's check this out. So she applied the Lust, right? So she's getting it down. Sustaining potion. Oh, and by the way, Bard doesn't have the best damage, right? You know what does? You know what's better? Resolution. So she's going into resolution. She does one resolution here. She does a second resolution while the behemoth's casting its second tornado. Get out of resolution. Now she's doing her DPS, right? There's the first meteor. Oh, and she's going back in. There's a second resolution. Guys, look at her HP. What the heck is this? Oh, look at how close this is. Oh, the third meteor's about to go off. Third meteor. The cast bar finished. It's coming down. The animation. What the heck is this? That's like robot levels. It's not this hard anymore. It's not this hard anymore. It's 180 is not this freaking impossible anymore. Let me show you guys what 180 is like now. This is current Endwalker 180 done by Finn, an amazing, very good runner.
Would have lost them
who
now.
also is a top score runner as well. Let me skip around.
Perfect. Everything's perfect.
Yeah, it's some precise HP ticks,
Okay,
right?
everything is perfect.
I got
This
15
is the
minutes
best
for this
my
panel. I
burst
gotta
I've
hurry
ever
up.
been. I don't think I'm messing up anything. Ocean. Ooh, okay. Don't panic, don't panic. This song, it's dead. Yes!
Look, it didn't even like, that wasn't even close. That wasn't even close. And he didn't even have to use 2 resos. It's a lot more doable now. Don't get me wrong. It's still insanely hard. That is not easy to do. Bard 180 right now. That is still very, very hard. But like Shadowbringer Bard, that was like robot levels. I'm like, what the heck? How is anyone supposed to actually do that? Okay, but that's 180. I had my fun talking about 180. You're gonna not have a fun time dealing with it if you're gonna go for this, by the way. Yeah, it's hard versus impossible, right? Dude, I don't know what. Anyone who did Bard 180 and Shadowbringers, they're robots, I swear. Okay, floor 190. Now you did 180. You're not done yet. You still got the 190 fight. And 190, it's subjective. Some people think 180 is harder. Some people think 190 is harder. I was a red mage, so 180 was a joke for me. 190, though, this guy hits so hard. You need steel because he has a tank buster move, and if that tank buster move crits you without steel, you're just dead. You're at full HP, boom, and you're just dead. Yeah, you need steel for this fight, unless you're a tank. Tanks don't need steel. And this boss fight, besides a tank buster, it's kind of unique. It'll summon like these blue bombs, and you have to like DPS it down before they cast their cast goes off. Otherwise, it explodes. It does a ton of damage to you. It won't kill you if you're at full HP. It does a set amount of damage, and it'll also freeze you too. And then after that, it'll start charging up like a super move, and then a red bomb comes out, and you have to hit the red bomb and get it near the boss. And the red bomb exploding will actually stun the enemy and prevent it from using its like super move. If you mess it up and the enemy gets its like super move off, it does 99% damage. Doesn't kill you though. So if you're at max HP, it'll bring you down to 1%. And if you're a healer, you can still heal up. But other jobs may struggle to recover from that. There was actually one time where the player Aurora Moon, he was doing Astrologian, and Astrologian's damage is so weak that you actually need 2 steals for this fight because 1 steal won't last enough. And he only had 1 steal going in because he couldn't find any in that entire set. And he had to do a portion of the fight without steal. And it was the scariest thing ever. And at any point, it could have ended. Any point, if the tank buster crit, it was over. And I had to do that recently too. If you go to my YouTube channel, William Kwon, I was playing White Mage, and I kind of messed up on the DPS a lot, so my steel ran out, and I had to do this fight for 4 minutes without steel, and it was the most nerve-wracking thing ever. Every time he hit me, I lost like half of my HP, and I'm like, bro. Okay, but that's 190. Now, I want to go into a couple extra things here and there, extra couple tidbits, that random stuff that might help you out. Just useful knowledge to know. Some Pomanders don't drop until a certain point. Alteration, Purity, Serenity doesn't drop until the second set, floor 11 plus. Rage doesn't drop until 21 plus. Raising until 51 plus. Resolution doesn't drop until 61 plus. The 81 set, I've noticed, has an increased drop of the Rage Pomander for some reason. I don't know why. Just something I've noticed. The Alteration doesn't drop on the 9th floor of a set until the 101 plus floors. Why? I don't know. Like, what I'm saying is, like, floor 38, you can pick up alterations. Floor 39, you cannot find alterations. Floor 108, you can find alteration. Floor 109, you can find alteration. Why? I couldn't tell you. It just is. Oh, and the raising Pomander stops dropping starting from the 181 plus set. Oh, also, I don't have it on the slide, but interestingly enough, floor 171 through 173 has an increased chance of landmines. So it's a very popular strategy for tanks and healers to use a site in hopes that they find a landmine and they can do a landmine play. It's just weird things that we've noticed and just that we know. Time management, a very important skill to have in Deep Dungeon is not wasting your time. The highest floors, it is a race against the clock, and tiny things that you do it'll add up. Tiny ways that you waste time, it'll add up, and it can cost you. There are several sets by a lot of us where we barely make it through a set by like the last second. It'll happen because you're trying to save up on Pomanders and trying to get through without using as many Pomanders as possible, right? You're always cutting it close. And you know how you might be wasting time? You're not fighting an enemy. And your cooldowns are up. Your strong abilities are up and you're not fighting an enemy. So those cooldowns are kind of going to waste. You want to kind of constantly be pulling, especially if you're a class that can move and while fighting. If you're like Machinist, you want to fight an enemy, run and gun while you're also exploring and checking chests too. Like that. Not having to backpedal too much. Maybe you went one direction too far and there's a chest all the way back there and you go back and you're just running to pick up that one chest. That can waste time too. And the worst one, and another bad habit is like, you don't know what to do. You're like, oh, what is this situation? What can I do? So you're just kind of standing there like, what do I want to do? Do I want to strength? Do I want to steal? Do I want to rage this? You do that, you're wasting time. You're not doing anything. You want to iron out these small habits as much as possible. And you want to figure out your next plan, like just actively all the time. It's hard to explain, but there was a video recently by Runner Finn. I just showed you this Bard video. He just uploaded this week a video called Deep Dungeon Tips Multitasking, where he analyzes one of his recent Gunbreaker runs and just kind of, shows his like thought process throughout that. So it's a really good watch. If you can YouTube that, you should be able to find it. Also, scoring. I did mention that I'm technically the number one highest Red Mage score in North America for Palace. If scoring is something that you're interested in, these are some things that go into it. The amount of enemies you kill, each one's like word points. If you reveal a room, if you reveal all the rooms of a floor on the minimap, that's word points. You could also just use a site. That should count too. Killing mimics are worth more than regular enemies. Opening a chest is word points. Finishing a set within 30 minutes counts as a speedrun and gives like 75 enemies worth of points. If you step on a trap, you lose points. If you die and come back to a raising, you lose points. If you step on a luring trap, you lose points from the trap, but there's 3 enemies, so it's actually a net positive now. And look, I talked about a lot here, but like there's so much that you can study and learn from Deep Dungeon. So even more resources. Here are 2 very useful discords. Angelus Cord. Angelus Demoness Cord is Angelus Demoness' server. This is literally the hangout spot for all of us Deep Dungeon runners, solo Deep Dungeon runners. We're all in here. This is where we hang out. There's also the Deep Dungeons Cord for like both solo and group. And if you need more help, just join the Angelus Cord, go into the FAQ section, and then all the guides and like links that people have made are there. You have a Red Mage 2-hour video guide by Sig. You have a scoring guide by Finn. You have a healer guide by Aurora. You have a 151 plus trap locations by Daraban. A lot of useful information there. And you can always ask questions in the Q&A too. People are always going to be lovely to hang out. I have 8 minutes. Okay. And for this last part, I'm done talking about the Deep Dungeon itself. I want to tell you guys something about the players and the history, because it's really interesting stuff to know. I mean, these are incredible players that go under the radar pretty often because people just don't know about this type of content. There are people who have cleared Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High with every job. They're called Omni Clears, and there's only 6 right now. The first one was by Olympia, way before everyone else, March 1st, 2021. And she did it on the Ether Data Center. And then Lily, Fania, Tara, Norbin, all from Japan. And then most recently by Aurora Moon back in May. And yeah, and there's actually two more soon, not yet, but soon. Angelus Demoness only has Astrologian left. Finn only has Astrologian and Black Mage left. You should definitely go check them out if you want to follow that journey. And not just them, but here are some epic Deep Dungeon streamers that I wanna kind of point out. Because I love the Deep Dungeon community. I usually like the community more than playing the game. That's how I was in Smash Bros. Like for the last 6 years. But I have to hurry up. 7 minutes. You guys ready for this? Starting with Angelus Demoness, low-key like the face of the Deep Dungeon community. This man has worked hard the last couple of years in helping the Deep Dungeon scene grow as much as it did. He's a very calm and collected individual, cool as a cucumber, and has cultivated a very positive and supportive community for the Deep Dungeon scene. His stream runs are where a lot of people are getting the inspiration to begin their Deep Dungeon journey and study off of. Amazing guy. Next up is the Bible creator and the OG Necromancer dude in North American Meiji. She's still around. She's always helping out newcomers like the 100% non-toxic Seiso Maho Shoujo VTuber that she is. We're Madoka up in here. Very cute, very funny, very entertaining streamer. Not to mention very skilled too, because she recently cleared Heaven on High as Arcanist. Hello. And she's actually doing Arcanist Palace of the Dead right now on her stream as we speak. I actually messaged her back in like 2019 when I started the game, asking her like, hi, do you have to clear Palace 100 200 without dying for the title? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool, I'll try it one day. And I did. And I got Necromancer. Now I play Minecraft and Phasmophobia with her. Never give up on your dreams, guys. Guys, Meiji is pushing for Twitch partner right now. And you guys all owe it to her for branching the path to the Necromancer for everybody, right? So please go over to her Twitch, Meiji with 2 eyes at the end, and give her a watch. And you know who else is pushing for partner? Aurora Moon X. Okay, first off, guys, this guy is literally a Lucario. Oh, my goodness, I skipped it. Ugh, the Lucario foot pushed it. How did I skip all the way there? Okay, you know who else is pushing for partner? Aurora Moon X. Okay, first of all, guys, he's a Lucario. He's an IRL Lucario. But in real life, Lucario, he's literally a real life Lucario. That's what he told me. Aurora only got affiliated like at the beginning of this year, I think, and has quickly grown to be a very beloved member of the Deep Dungeon community. He's an Omni clearer and also a healer specialist who have cleared every healing class without sustaining potions in both Deep Dungeons except Astron Palace. By the way, guys, Aurora's actually also cleared Heaven on High recently as a conjurer. And he did it in his first try. Like, how is that possible? I'll tell you why. Because he uses his Lucario aura powers, the same way that Meiji uses his magical girl powers. This guy has personally guided me the most in my Necromancer journey and has kind of guided me in like other stuff too. So I really respect this guy a lot. And I'd love for you guys to check out both these two, Aurora Moon and Meiji. They're so close to Twitch partnership, and I hope they can get it soon. So please go check them out. And up next is Finn Bazal. This guy has paved the way for high score runs. There's been an influx of runners now going for high score runs alongside their clears, including me. And it's thanks to this guy breaking down and explaining how he gets his high scores in his amazing score guide. And if you need some credibility on his scoring ability, at one point, about a month ago, I think, he held the highest score for every job in Heaven on High for the Ether Data Center. I think a whole article was written about it. He has plenty of world record scores for various jobs. And I think he has the same accent as XQC, so that's pretty cool too. And then for the last one is Alithia, but I put an asterisk because she hasn't streamed in a long, long time. But hear me out. Okay, she's super interesting. I want to talk about her. So I put Alithia on this list, but she hasn't streamed in like forever. But she's also like the only other person besides Angelus to get partnered off of Deep Dungeon content, I think. And she's really interesting, and I want to talk about it because, dude, no one knows about her. Even in Deep Dungeon, like, I swear, like, some people, like, a lot of the newcomers in Deep Dungeon, like, don't know about her and, like, her history and, like, the crazy stuff that she's done. She's literally, like the GOAT in Deep Dungeon. Let me explain what she's done. Let me explain some of her achievements. She is the 4th to ever clear Palace of the Dead, first to clear Heaven on High, first to clear Palace of the Dead not as Red Mage, she does Samurai, only Palace 10 clear during Stormblood, world first Dragoon Monk Dancer for Heaven on High, world first Dancer Reaper and Bard for Palace, and they had hella high scores, and like no one knows about her because she doesn't really have too much I'm gonna get to her YouTube because she doesn't really have that many social media presence. Like she doesn't even have Twitter. And on top of that, her scores don't even exist because, in December of 2021, her character got compromised for some reason, which got rid of all her scores. She quit Deep Dungeon and she quit 14. Then she came back to 14 and she made a new character on Crystal, but she wasn't doing Deep Dungeon because, everything was gone, right? And she also deleted her YouTube too with all the VODs because she was like, not feeling too good about it. Understandably, I'd be too, right? And so she quit Deep Dungeon. But, guys, she's back. She came back 2 months ago. She only came back 2 months ago. She started doing runs again. And she's only been back for 2 months, and she has been terrorizing the Crystal leaderboards. Guys, just within the last 2 months of June and July, you know what she's done? She has gotten world record warrior, world record sage, world record monk, world record dragoon, world record samurai, world record reaper, world record bard, and world record dancer. And the highest heaven on high score ever so far in any job as a ninja. And she did this all in the last 2 months. And no one knows about this. No one even talks about this in Deep Dungeon. It like blows my mind. I'm like, you literally just, what is happening? Like no one knows about this because no one knows Deep Dungeon's community enough. And she doesn't stream her runs for some reason. She has her channel. I'm telling her, I'm like, Alithia, can you just stream your runs? Can you make a Twitter and post this at least? I'm trying to convince her, guys. Guys, if you follow her channel, Alithia, right? She's not streaming these runs yet, but all I'm saying is like, maybe you can convince her, right? Maybe she can start streaming now, right? And like maybe, and I'm just saying if she does go live, I'm just saying you're in for a treat. That's all I'm saying. Also, I think she's doing Palace of the Dead Dancer right now. I was gonna try and get that too, but she's gonna get it before me. Also, me, oh guys, I'm the Deep Dungeon GOAT actually. I'm very close to Omni. I'm like 17. I only need 17 more classes in Palace and 19 more classes in Heaven on High. I'm very close to Omni. I'm actually the Deep Dungeon GOAT. You can ask me anything too. That's my Discord. Follow my Twitch. I haven't streamed Deep Dungeon in a while. I haven't done it in a while. But this panel and all you guys, I'm thinking about trying it out again. So Monday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Hey, yo, follow me. Check me out. And if that's not enough, you need more Deep Dungeon people. Boom. And then boom. You're never going to get your Deep Dungeon fixed. I want to talk about all these people. I literally have a minute left. Oops, sorry. Hey, shout out to my boy Fruity Snacks. Why he got 4 fishing panels? This guy taught me. This has nothing to do with Deep Dungeon. This guy taught me how to do fish. He was my mentor for fishing. Then I got #1 Saint of Firman ranking fishing. Hey yo, did you guys see my LunarCon videos? We did one last year. We did one this year. Hey, did we? Hey, who won the machinima contest? I couldn't see it because of his panel. Shout out to my boy Ko. Let's go. He got my back. Q&A. We ain't got time for that. You can ask me. Actually, there is an overtime panel in the LunarCon Discord, right? I'll be in it for a bit. You guys can ask me there. Actually, if you do have any questions, I'll be in the Discord for a bit. You can ask me there, or just feel free to ask me. There's my Discord. You can just ask me in my Twitch, Twitter. That's fine. Feel free to ask me any questions. Yo, I finished this in time, baby. 7:30. Let's go. We actually did it. Wait, do I just end the stream now? Yeah, hold on. What am I supposed to do from here? I just end the stream now, right? I forgot what the instructions were. Did anyone watch the other panels? I'll just end the stream. Thank you guys for watching. We did it. We got through everything. Let's go. Bye. Who put this picture here? Oh, my friends put these pictures. Bye. Thank you guys for tuning in. Ask me questions. I'll be in the Discord in the